Hey everybody, this is Elle Nagy from the Direction You Empowerment Dynasty, and you're listening to the Unapologetic Woman Podcast, the show for female leaders who love to live their legacies unleashed, unlimited, and unafraid. If this is a community you would like to be a part of, visit directionyou.co/unapologetic. Today we're talking about the security mindset with Deirdre, Harter, and Carmen Reed-Gilkison. Deirdre and Carmen are the co-founders of Encore Empire, the place where women who believe that entrepreneurship is the most exhilarating and satisfying way to reach financial security and freedom translate their experience into impact and income while making a difference in the world and leaving a legacy. It's where these women get the support they need to grow and scale. Carmen and Deirdre bring together their backgrounds in business with the financial savvy of a CPA and the insights of a certified online business manager and whole person coach to totally transform online businesses and the lives of the women who run them. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Deirdre and Carmen. So, you're my first threesome.
We like to be the first.
I've not had a threesome before on the podcast. So really exciting for me. And I have no idea how it's going to go, but we're just going to roll with it and have fun. So thank you so much to both of you ladies for being here today. And we were just saying we're all recovering from the snuffles and the flus and the other things, and we still get to show up, right? And we still get to share our voices and our experiences. And I think that is so important for women to start getting, is like we get to just show up from where we are with life happening, and we're still enough. Like we don't have to show up perfect and only in our best selves all the time.
That's right.
Look at you, you still look fabulous. So whatever. So welcome to the show, and well, we've not done a threesome, and you girls are way more experienced than what I am on podcasts. So I'm going to throw the ball to Carmen. Carmen, start us off. Where would you like this conversation to even go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to wherever it goes. I think where you started it is great, and that is that we don't need to show up perfect. We don't need to be perfect. It's like, let's just be real. You know, it's life happens. We do things. Sometimes we have to take time. Sometimes we don't. We can still show up. Luckily, in this day and age, we live in such a fantastic time in history where we have these opportunities to take advantage of showing up because we're still in the comfort of our own homes, right? So you don't have to feel 100%. And you also don't have to do something if you're not feeling well, you know. Deirdre and I are both recovering from stuff, but we're recovered enough that we feel fine showing up. But if we didn't, we also would be fine rescheduling, you know. Like, I think we've all put too much pressure on ourselves in general all the time as women.
I think that's a really important point, and it's one of my key messages to people at the moment. This whole self-sacrifice bullshit that we've all been conditioned to, like we have to show up regardless. It's not actually serving anybody, because we never get to feel like we get to nourish ourselves first. We get to nurture ourselves first and then show up perfectly imperfect. But it's always from I'm good to do this. Otherwise, we reschedule, regardless of what that reschedule is. Deirdre, how would you like to come into this?
So this is a great topic, because Carmen and I have noticed this trend, and we just did a training in our Facebook group about it. It was about this idea of shaming ourselves over things. And we hear this far too often. And in fact, I was on a coaching call with one of our clients earlier today, and she has been going through a whole lot of upheaval in her personal life. She just moved into a new home, and she's trying to get her office together, you know, and she's living her life around her business. And that is one thing we are so passionate about, is that for too long, most of us worked in an environment where we had to live our life around whatever was going on at work, right? Like work, everybody that you worked with felt like this was the priority and this should be the priority in your life, especially for those of us who are very ambitious and wanted to make something of our careers. Then you get into entrepreneurship and we carry that with us to where we feel like, okay, have to take a second seat personally, but I have to, do all of these business things. And so she was apologizing. She's like, I'm so sorry. I don't have my green screen up for Zoom. My office is a mess. And I told her, I said, just stop. Like you do not need to apologize at all. The fact is you are here, you're showing up for this call. We're going to get some important work done, and it does not matter. So you can be in your bathrobe for all that I care. What's important is that we are doing important work, and all that surface stuff is just not that important. Not that we don't need to be professional, because we do in a lot of situations, but we don't have to be that way all the time.
I love this. And this is one of the things that I am still wrapping my own mind around. And Carmen, you'll know this about the unapologetic space that I hold, is I feel like so many, especially women entrepreneurs, have become so boring, respectfully, because all they can talk about and think about is business. And business is just part of this rich life experience. There's so much else that's available to us. And I'm just finding creating a space where we can talk about life enhances business. Business does not have to enhance life. Life gets to enhance business. But there's a mindset shift that needs to start taking place, especially in the entrepreneurial space with regards to that, in that we don't live to work and build the business. The business is part of how we get to live. Would you agree with that, Carmen?
100%. Yeah. And I think that a lot of it, as we move forward in time, like I really see us on this timeline of history, right? And so we're all learning how to unlearn the things that we need to unlearn and take on the new things, to do things in a way that helps us and supports us in our life. So I think a lot of it is the whole I'm sorry, the apologizing thing. We did a LinkedIn newsletter this last week, and it was the 4 myths that you might be mistakenly believing that make you feel not good enough. And getting into that habit of apologizing for everything too is one. Like I try really hard not to say I'm sorry unless I've done something. Of course, we want to be respectful. And if you hurt someone or if you kept someone waiting, sure, say, I'm sorry that I kept you waiting. But women in general tend to apologize for every single solitary thing. Like it's almost like we're apologizing for taking up space or breathing air. And it's like, let's stop with the apologizing. You have every right to be on this planet, taking up space. Take up a lot of space, as much space as you want. Breathe all the air. There's plenty of air for all of us. But when we get into this apologizing thing, it really works against us in our psyche. And I think that that's just ingrained. And so when you talk about the whole holistic thing of business supports life, life supports business, it's a two-way street. That's why we love working with our clients the way we do in a holistic manner, because we talk about all these things, these difficult conversations. It's not just what are your metrics? What is your call to action? What is your conversion rate? We talk about everything because that's what's missing, especially in the online business space, for sure.
And that brings us to the whole, this is the Unapologetic Woman podcast, right? So what does it mean to you ladies to be unapologetic? What does an unapologetic woman mean to you?
So for me, it means owning who I am and loving who I am and not being worried about whether other people feel the same way, and not letting my self-worth be dictated by my perception of what other people think about me.
Oh, can you repeat that last piece?
Sure. So it's not letting my self-worth be dictated by my perception of what other people think about me.
That is gold, because it is our perception. It's not even necessarily what they think about us, but what we think they think about us, and then pinning our self-worth onto that. Wow. Mic drop. Carmen.
Yeah, it's that. And not only is it our perception of what we think they think about us, but anyone coming into contact with us on any day, they're carrying their own load. Like, all of us are too worried about what people are thinking about us. I'm not going around thinking hardly anything about anyone. I'm thinking about what's going on in my life, and that's what everyone else is doing. So let's not worry about it. If someone's having a bad day and they say something, let it, to the extent you can, try to learn to let it fall off, roll off your back, because it's about them more than it's about you. Again, unless you've done something to have to apologize for. And of course, we're not saying that we're right 100% of the time when we don't make mistakes. But the idea is not to be coming from, when we apologize, we are automatically reinforcing dominance and submission in a relationship by taking the submissive role when no one even asked us to. So you're doing yourself a big disservice because you're coming in and you're apologizing, and then that other person is like, oh, wow, so they just demurred to me on something. And, I don't think women realize that you're doing that, but that's what you're doing. And I'm not all about we have to be the alpha person or any of that, but just really when you think about it, we aren't aware of how all of this apologizing is affecting our success, our psyche, the beliefs about ourselves, and how other people perceive us. And again, how they perceive us is their business, not ours, but it still affects it.
There's so much in the sorry culture, right? And I remember I read a book, and I can't remember what book it was, but it was about creating awareness for women about how often they apologize. And one of the exercises in the book was to track every time that you said sorry. And I was horrified. And I would be on my bike and on a single track, and if somebody was coming from the front, I would automatically say, oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, what am I sorry for? I'm sorry for riding my bike in a designated bike area. What is that about? And as I was tracking it, I started paying attention to just how often and how stupid it was for what I was even apologizing for. And like you so rightly said, it came down to apologizing for taking up place and space in the world, as though I'm supposed to give it to somebody else. And I think a lot of that for me was ingrained from my upbringing, from a scarcity mindset that whatever you have is taking away from somebody else. Let's take the conversation there, because I think that's really important, especially for women over 40, because most of us were raised with that scarcity mindset. We have to feel guilty for what we have and for what we want, because it means somebody else has to do without. Would you ladies like to talk into that?
Oh, yes. This is like one of my go-to subjects, this whole scarcity mindset thing. And it is, I think it hits women especially hard. I mean, men can have it too, but I think as women, I remember hearing stories. My mom told me stories when she was growing up, and my grandfather had a very good job. He had a working farm on top of it, and so they were very, very comfortable financially. But there was this idea that he controlled everything, and so everyone, all the women in the house had to ask for anything, and unless it was an absolute necessity. And it was always like taking from. It wasn't a let's share and this is all for all of us. It was, well, you're taking from this. And I remember one story that I was appalled at. She was saying when she went to school when she was younger, my grandmother would have to set aside money and pull money out of the grocery money in order to buy her 1 or 2 dresses for the year. And I thought, that is just, it sounds like something that happened 500 years ago, and yet it wasn't that long ago. And I've watched, that same thing. I've been very careful in how I've presented things. And you hear those phrases all the time, we can't afford that, and that costs too much. And we say it because we've been hearing it our whole entire life. And that scarcity mindset around money then translates into every other part of our life. And so it's not just people say it's a money mindset, and it is, but it really bleeds into how we perceive everything we do, and that any resource, there isn't enough of it. And so we all feel like it's finite, there's not enough. And I think the media plays on that too. You're always hearing about, the gas shortage and the oil shortage and the shortage of this and the shortage of that. And then our time plays into it. We don't have enough time for this and don't have enough time for that. So it becomes a way of life, and we have to completely flip the script on all of it.
Well, and it's like the whole recession talk that's been going on for months and months now, and everybody's going like, yes, we're being warned about the recession. And I'm keeping thinking, but you're creating the recession because that's all you're focusing on. Do people still not understand that we create what we focus on? And so if everybody's saying there's a recession coming, then there is, because we're creating it.
Right. Yeah. It is all that. And it's, Deirdre and I met during the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, and we launched our business and we're very successful. So we've done it through a pandemic, into a recession, and we are growing and more successful. It's like, it's a bunch of baloney. It's what you believe in is going to make it happen. And, when you talk about that scarcity mindset, Deirdre, that also feeds into when you're raised with that. And I had the same things. Money doesn't grow on trees, and, whatever all the things were. And my mom was actually a little bit pointed about this, that you're selfish, this, that, and the other thing. Well, you start taking on that if there's not enough of anything, then that's why you're apologizing too. I don't mean to take this. I don't want to take this from you. I'm not worthy of that, because you're raised with it and you're getting it told to you over and over and over again, whether it's in a nice way or a not nice way. The message is that you're not worthy, because, that is such a sad story about your mom having to have just 2 dresses for the whole school year. So that's putting a worth on there, and it's false. It's just because the way that your grandfather lived. But I watched my mom too not have any ability or idea of what was going on financially in our house. And then when my father actually committed suicide at a point when I was 27, my mom was like flying blind. She had no idea, no clue for however many years was that she had gone and not had anything to do with it. And so that's also a worth thing. The man takes care of the finances. The woman doesn't. She's the stay-at-home mom, and she does this, that, and the other thing. And I am just so against all of that. And having watched all that, and having watched her, kind of, a lot of it was self-imposed, but a lot of it wasn't. But her inability to handle life, kind of, it made me want to rebel. And I kind of have rebelled from an early age, and I continue to rebel because I think it's a bunch of baloney. For some people can see it, like Elle, you're one, Deirdre, you're one, where you can see this stuff happening and you're seeing it you're able to be objective and go, no, wait a minute. This does not make sense. This is not right. But other people don't seem to be able to do that, and they get sucked into it, and then it becomes their part of their identity. And that makes me sad.
I keep talking about the fact that we are lacking critical thinking more and more in society. And critical thinking comes from the willingness to question, and the willingness to be curious. And I am a very curious person by nature. And I was having a conversation with somebody before this and kind of going, even now I am questioning everything that I believe, even everything in the personal development space. And it does take a little bit of gumption to kind of go, well, what if everything that I've been preaching and teaching for the last 20 years is wrong? Not because I need to make other people wrong, but because I'm willing to explore another possibility. And I think that's the difference, is that we are willing to explore alternative possibilities than what we've been raised with or how things are at the moment, not because we need anybody to be wrong, but we are willing to look outside of the realm of what is. And I feel that that is what's really needed in society today, is more people willing to be curious and have critical thinking. And it takes a detachment of your ego. It takes a detachment of the personality that you've been building up till now. And I find that the older I get, the more open I get. And it's interesting because for a large part of the population, the older they get, the more set they get in their ways and in their beliefs. I'm the opposite. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to your work, because you choose to work with a more mature demographic. Would you ladies like to speak into that?
Yes. And I love what you're saying, Elle. And I have found the same thing. It's almost like when I came up on 50, it was almost like an awakening for me. And all of the things that I knew, like I have known for years, I'm a personal development junkie, like literally, like if I have a choice of books, it's going to be a personal development book. And it's been that way my whole life, because I've always been seeking, to be the best version of myself and to live the fullest life that I want to live. And I know that with anything, you have to learn and you have to practice and you have to be exposed to new information on a continual basis. So that's me as a learner. I knew that. But when I hit 50, all of a sudden, I became more open-minded. I thought I was open-minded, but then I realized I wasn't as open-minded as I thought I was. And I began to question, these beliefs that I've had, and I'm not even sure where they came from. And I started asking myself, well, why do you believe that? And when I started digging down deeper, I'm realizing, well, I don't even really know why I believe that. And so I have felt that same, it's like a freedom that has come with this age of being able to see things I didn't see before and to explore things that I never even thought to explore. It wasn't that I was resistant, I just didn't know about it. And because entrepreneurship fosters all those same qualities, and you have to be very courageous to be an entrepreneur. And anyone who decides to be an entrepreneur, we know they've got the goods. It's in them. I always say I've had entrepreneurial DNA my whole life, and I think every entrepreneur has that. And what I love about what we do in coaching female business owners, especially in this age group, is that we are able to help them activate that DNA and to really step in and give them, they need to feel like they have permission. And I know we don't need permission, but what we found is by having someone working with them, that I hear this all the time, like, I feel like I have permission now to do this because they've been accepted and they no longer have to, they can empower themselves and they feel like they're in a safe space in order to do that.
And this for me is interesting. I was having a conversation with a lady yesterday, and I was sharing with her that I'm in conversation with somebody as a potential business partner, because I'm at that age now where I'm like, I don't have anything left to prove. And quite frankly, I'm tired of being the business owner. I just want to play and have fun now and create a dynasty with other people that moves beyond me. And she was like, but how do you know you're getting the right person? Because every time I've collaborated in the past, I end up with having to take on even more responsibility. And I really had to think about this. And I said to her, it's because I'm partnering with older women now. And I am surrounding myself with older women who don't have anything left to prove. We're not raising kids anymore. I feel like young women put so much pressure on themselves, and I did, that I had to raise the kids, keep the household going, build a successful business, have an amazing body. It was so much pressure. And looking back now, I go, Oh, if only I had partnered with older women who don't have all of that pressure, because our mind capacity is open for more creativity after a certain age. Would you agree with that? And are you finding that with your clients as well?
Definitely. And that is one of the reasons why we love working with women over 40, because we are more collaborative as we age. It's exactly what you're saying. And this is the most pleasant surprise. Like, it's the big myth that life ends at 50, right? Life begins at 50, everybody, in case you haven't learned that yet. And we had to, when Deirdre and I met, we met and fairly quickly started a business. And people are like, oh man, I wish I had a partner. And how do you find the right partner? And it is true. There is a little bit of that you have to suss out in the beginning, because I didn't want to be writing Deirdre's coattails, and I didn't want her writing mine. And you don't know, but if you give it a test run, we ran a workshop and we had a test run and we had an agreement. And it was like, okay, the more we worked together, the more we saw how in sync we are with our working style, our, beliefs, our values. And actually that's what we did in the beginning, is we did a values exercise, because we believe, and this is how we coach, it's the inside out approach. So you have got to be in touch with your values so that whatever you're building, your life, your business, whatever it is, you're building the right thing. Because it's very possible, and I've done it before, where I built a business before that I absolutely did not like. And it's because I ignored those little nagging feelings that were like, well, this isn't really exactly in line with your values. But it was like, but this is what they say I should do, right? And so I think when you get to 50, you're tired of them. You're tired of what all they say. You have to have the perfect body. You have to have the clean house. You have to do X, Y, and Z. And you start going, you know what? They aren't part of my life. I am. I get to decide now. And I love what Deirdre said about always wanting to be the best version of herself. And that's why she was drawn to personal development. And I think that's also, when I think about me and always having curiosity through my life, it's the same thing. I'm not so tied up in my ego that I have to be right about things. I mean, I love it when I can bring something to the table of value and someone gets something out of it, sure. But isn't it more fun to learn something new? Like, if you know it all, how boring is that? Then what do you have? I mean, life is about learning and exploration. And if you think you know it all and you're so worried about being right or wrong, you're missing the whole point of life, is what I think.
And I love the F word, like fun, right? When did business stop being fun for people? What is the point? I was on a call yesterday with a young lady. She's two weeks into business, just about, and she's already thinking about financial freedom and doing this and that and the other. But have you even thought about creating a business that's going to be fun for you? And she hadn't even thought of the possibility that business can be fun. And I feel as older women, we actually really have a responsibility at this time to start stepping up and bring wisdom back to the conversation, because we raised in a time, or of the boss babes that are in their 20s and their 30s and they're on fire and they're passionate. But where's the wisdom, ladies? Like, where's the wise women of society stepping up and going, okay, well, now that I'm on the other side, this is what I now get to create. And this is why I feel women almost have the best opportunity right now than ever before to be the entrepreneur, if that is who they are. I also don't believe everybody is born to be an entrepreneur. I believe that some people really flourish in the structure of corporate and stuff. But for those women who were born to be entrepreneurs, who have the entrepreneurial spirit, this is the best time for us to actually start our businesses. Would you agree with that? Even though everybody's going, oh, the sky is falling in on our heads, recession is coming, baby, this is not the time to start your business. What are your thoughts on that?
So if anyone has ever studied anything when it comes to economics, you'll see that the millionaires of this country, the old money, came out of the Great depression and recession, right? So that blows the whole myth right there that in a recession, you have to shrink back and you have to, hunker down. The fact is, you can thrive in any condition if you've decided that you're going to thrive. There is no right or wrong. There's no black and white. It really is about what your strategy is going to be. And I call this reverse security, this whole idea of, oh, I have to hang on to my job and I have to, work for somebody else in order to have security. We've been taught that. And for a lot of people, and like you said, Elle, I totally agree with you. Either you've got entrepreneurial DNA or you don't. I mean, it's not entrepreneurial spirit is not something that just can be learned. Like, you can learn the entrepreneurial skills that you need, but you can't just say, oh, I'm going to choose to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to learn it and I'm going to live it. Like, it has to be something that comes from within you, because it is not easy at all. It takes so much courage. It is so much easier to go work in a profession. But at the same time, you have to, it's always a matter of balancing risk and reward. And in a time of recession, there's a tremendous amount of reward that's available to you. And if you decide, I'm not going to let, I always come back to my husband is like this amateur meteorologist guy, right? Like, he loves the weather. And so anytime there's any talk of bad weather coming or a snowstorm coming, it's like he's like changing his entire schedule. Like, oh, we can't plan to go out because 14 days from now there could be a storm coming. And you can't, and I think a lot of people live their life like that. Like, this thing could be happening and therefore I'm not going to act it. I'm not going to move and I'm going to just stay here stuck. But really, it's like, my philosophy is, and I always tell them, I'm like, the weather's going to happen when it's going to happen, and it's going to do what it's going to do. And in the meantime, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I think that's how we have to go about it, is do what you're going to do and do it with all of your passion, and don't let it's circumstances change in a moment's notice. And like you said, Elle, we attract and bring in what we are focused on. And so when you will focus on success, then you can achieve success, and it doesn't matter what is happening outside in the world.
I love that. And what comes to mind, and this might sound crazy, is there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being self-employed. The entrepreneur is the creative. The entrepreneur is the originator. The entrepreneur is the one who enjoys the risk and the chaos, because that is when we are on fire. We see so much possibility and potential. Whereas being self-employed is probably not the best time to start during a recession, because you are selling something that's already existing. It's not a creative, it's just not being employed by somebody else. Carmen, you're nodding your head. So would you like to talk into that?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because it has to come from within. That's why we work from the inside out. We start with the values, because it's not, the gal that you talked about that you spoke with yesterday, she's doing what she knows is to be right. Like, when I started, what did I do? I was in corporate. I had, 25 plus years in corporate, an excellent career. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. What am I going to do? And it was like, well, I could do what I'm doing on my own, but I don't want to do that. And a lot of people think they have to, the next step is just going out on their own from out of under the corporate umbrella, doing the same thing. But it's that thing that you might be tired of. I was just completely burnt out on the thing. It wasn't a bad thing. I was burnt out. I didn't want to do that anymore. So I looked at it, and this is another interesting thing, is my sister is an entrepreneur, and she did that. So she started an agency in PR, because that's what her business was. She was in PR. And so when I became an entrepreneur, I wanted to do something completely different. And there was a different, like, I lagged behind her for a while because I had a learning curve. I had to get into this and figure out what lights me up. And so that happened. And then I remember one day we were talking and she said something like, we were talking, well, she had just lost her dog. So she was in kind of a sad space, but she said, I just don't know what the point of life is. And I was thinking, every day I get up and I am so excited about helping the women we get to help and about all the possibilities that I don't even know about yet. Like something magnificent is going to happen next week or the week after that we don't even know. You're going to meet someone you haven't met before. It's all so exciting. And I thought that kind of illustrated for me the difference, because she followed a safe path of doing what she knew on her own, and I took a completely different path, and it has to be that way. I really think so. She's more self-employed than an entrepreneur. Yes, she has an agency. Yes, she's successful, but it's not that thing that is just lighting her up from inside like it is for me. And the other thing I'll say about this whole recession, the pandemic, all of this, these things have happened before in history. And how arrogant are we to think that it was all doom and gloom? You know, media paints it all to be doom and gloom. Well, we are 3 women right here living through it, and it's absolutely not doom and gloom. And I was thinking about that the other day, going, I wonder how many people back in 18 whatever were going through the Spanish flu and actually being okay. I mean, of course it was different times. Of course things were different, but not everybody was, you know, at their wits' end. And I just have to share this thing. I found this was about history. This guy on Facebook shared the story about a lady named Marguerite Durand. And he says, Marguerite Durand was tired of your shit. And if you didn't like her pet lion, or if you didn't like that, her pet lion took a shit on your carpet. And so this lady was from 1897, and she was born in 1864 in Paris to an unwed mother. And she basically said, fuck this shit. I'm not going to follow. That was back in 1897, everybody. If everyone had taken Margaret Durand's lead, we'd be in such a better place. But too many people are clinging to oh my gosh, I need the security of what society says I'm supposed to have. And it's absolutely not. You're more secure by following your inner voice and your inner strength.
And it comes back to success, right? I keep telling people you have to redefine success for yourself, because if your definition of success does not light your ass on fire, if it doesn't make you smile, if you don't feel it, then that's not your success. Then you're just a slave to somebody else's definition of success. And most people chasing societally approved success, in my observation, is miserable. The happier I choose to be, the more my life works well for me. Not that I choose to be happy because I'm getting the results. I played that game for many years. If I just get this medal, if I just make this amount of money, if I just have this size of body, then I'll be happy. And I call bullshit. You maybe have a moment of euphoria, of accomplishment, but then you go straight back to thinking, what's the next thing that I need to achieve in order for me to be happy? How many people can be happy regardless of specific outcomes? That for me is success. Being happy regardless of what's happening right now in this moment in my life, because nothing stays the same. Tomorrow everything is new, everything is different if I choose to make it so. So having a look at the time, and again, I don't know why I ever think that these calls can be half an hour, because we're women. I use that excuse for my love for talking. I'd like to know from you ladies, what do you take an unapologetic stand for in this world? Deirdre, I'd like to start with you.
So I take an unapologetic stand for following my bliss, whatever that is, and helping others to follow theirs. And I know that I'm a CPA, and a lot of my challenge has been people thinking I was completely insane because I was on this wonderful career track for so long, and I went through an awful lot to get that license. And then I have been an entrepreneur for many, many years now. And a lot of that was fail. I failed a lot to get to where I am today. And I remember, getting the shaking of the head and the, why are, why, it just made no sense to anyone else. Like, why would you be doing this when you're a CPA? Like, you should be like, in a corner office somewhere, and you should be doing this thing because that was the path that you were on. So my apologetic stand is to, just because it was kind of predestined for you, or you chose a path, like, you can change at any single moment, and I reserve the right to change my mind and my direction anytime that I feel that's what's right for me.
Amen to that, Carmen.
I love that. Yeah, and I would say I take an unapologetic stance on the fact that the second half of life is the best half of life, hands down. And so when you go into it, it's like a big myth. And when you hit 50 and you get this freedom and you start leaning into that, your life can take off. It is fantastic. So I don't care who you are. If you haven't realized that yet, you're in luck, because it is true.
I so agree with that. I am taking a stance against people saying age is just a number. I'm going, age is an incredible bloody number. I think that we need to start being proud of the number again, because saying age is just a number means that you believe that there is something wrong with aging and that we should all be defined as the same. And I'm going, why are we relegating the wisdom, the experience, the choice, the freedom, everything that we gain through becoming older? When did aging become a bad thing in this society? When aging is such a privilege in our life and such a blessing to society. And so I absolutely take a stand for age is an incredible number. And I wish more women would start bringing that back. How do our listeners get to connect with you, ladies? What is the best way for them to connect with you, to experience your work? All of that, Deirdre.
So the best place to go is to our website. That's encoreempire.com. And there you can see all the different things that we offer. We have a lot of resources for everyone. We have a Facebook community, but that's kind of the gate to get into the kingdom. So you go there and then you'll see all that we have to offer.
Beautiful. Any closing words from you, ladies, before we end today's incredible show, by the way? Thank you.
No, just thank you for having us. It was a fabulous conversation. I hope everyone leans into it. I hope we have inspired at least one person.
Oh, hell yes. I hope we've inspired every single listener, and I hope that I've inspired every single listener to connect with you, ladies, regardless of their age. And this is something that I want to say to the younger listeners as well. One of the best things you can do right now in your life is to start surrounding yourself with older women. Older women who have done the work, who have healed themselves, who are open to growth and opportunity, who are in their creative genius and living unapologetically. Honestly, the segregation between young and old has to stop. We're all in this together. We all want other people to succeed and to follow their bliss. I think that's the most beautiful thing about aging, is that we do so gracefully and unapologetically, and then allowing other people to be unapologetically themselves as well. Ladies, this has been such a rich conversation. Thank you so much. I might have to have you on the show again. We might have to do another one.
Thank you. Yes, it'd be fun.
It would be great. Yeah, we barely scratched the surface, Elle.
Exactly right. This conversation I need to get all my guests together once, and we'll do like a half-day show and all have a conversation. Wouldn't that be mind-blowingly delicious?
That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun. To all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to another interesting conversation next week. And don't forget, we get to live our legacies, unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. Have an amazing day further. Cheers.